In previous lecture, we discussed about the pyramids of the biomass in various ecosystem. Now, in this lecture, we will discuss about the food chains. Okay. Before we going to talk about the food chain, we know that the previous background of this food chain, that is a trophic level structure. Trophic level structure, this include the producers which having role the photosynthesis. Okay, they can make the food, that is through the photosynthesis processes. Then these producers are consumed by the primary consumer, that is known as the herbivorous. Then this herbivorous animal is consumed by the secondary consumer, that is known as the carnivorous animals or omnivorous animals. And third is the those organisms which are feeds on the secondary consumer. We know that this is known as the top consumers. Okay, likewise this is know that about the history of these food chains. Now actually we start that is the food chains. Okay, हा food chain हा प्रकार बरेच वेळा तुम्ही तुमच्या शाळेपासून ते 11-12 हा प्रकार होता. आता याच्यामध्ये आपण जरा डीप मध्ये पाहणार आहोत. In ecosystems, as you see in the ecosystem, in ecosystem one organism feeds on the others. That means the producers are consumer by the, that is producers are consumer by the primary consumers. Then these primary consumers are consumed by the secondary consumers, and the secondary consumers are consumed by the tertiary consumers. Okay, the food energy, that's what is this one organism, that is this feeds on this feeds on this feeds on, means that is in that's one organism feeds on other organism. That means the food energy, that is energy in the form of producers, is transferred from, that is from producers to the primary consumer, from primary consumer to the secondary consumer, from secondary consumer to the tertiary consumer. That means the food energy passes from one organism to the other organism. That means from the energy transfer from producers to the tertiary consumer, that is the top consumers. Energy process from producers to the top level consumer through the various trophic level. आता बघितलं आपण प्रायमरी पासून प्रायमरी सेकंडरी ह्या दोन ट्रॉपिक लेवल आहे, प्रोड्युसर पासून टॉप कंझ्युमर पर्यंत फूड एनर्जी पास होण्याच्या. The sequential arrangement of various organism through which energy passes is known as the food chains. Okay, ही काय एक सिक्वेशनल अरेंजमेंट आहे. फूड चेन मध्ये काय, दिस इज नथिंग बट द सिक्वेशनल. ही इथे खूप महत्वाचा वर्ड आहे की हे सिक्वेन्स आहे ह्याला पर्टिक्युलरली. असं नाही की डायरेक्ट प्रोड्युसरवरती टर्शियरी कंझ्युमर फीड करतोय किंवा प्रोड्युसरवरती डायरेक्ट सेकंडरी कंझ्युमर फूड करतो, तसं नाही. प्रोड्युसर, प्रायमरी कंझ्युमर, सेकंडरी कंझ्युमर आणि टर्शियरी कंझ्युमर, दिस आर द एक पर्टिक्युलरली थिंग्स, प्रायमरी, सेकंडरी, टर्शियरी, दिस इज द सिक्वेन्स. ओके, इथं डायरेक्ट नाही की टर्शियरी कंझ्युमर डायरेक्टली फीड्स ऑन द producers or tertiary consumer directly feeds on the primary consumers. There is some sequence. Okay, other this will not happen, that is secondary consumers feeds on the tertiary consumers. Okay, or primary consumers feeds on the tertiary consumers. Not like was energy flow, they have the particular sequence for the energy flow. That means the energy sequence flow according to sequential trophic level arrangements. For example, this is the sequential arrangement of various organisms through which energy passes. That means the process of the energy take place. This is known as the food chains. For example, now आता तुम्हाला हे जे नॉर्मल एक्झाम्पल तुम्हाला याच्यामध्ये माहित असेल. For example, now we can see here insect feed on plants. We can see here that is a grass. Okay, here is one example of the food chain, that is the grass. These grass are the producers. They can trap the light energy and convert it into the chemical energy in the form of starch. Okay, this grass is eaten by primary consumer. This is the primary consumers. Okay, this is the primary consumers. Okay, we can say this insect feeds on the grasses. Therefore, energy transfer from this insect. Now here is the frog and snakes. Okay, this frog and snakes, these are the secondary consumers. These are the secondary consumers because this insect is eaten by this frog. Okay, this insect is eaten by the frog. Therefore, energy transfer from insect to the frog, and this frog is eaten by. Now this is the frog is a purely carnivorous, we can say. Okay, this snake is also purely carnivorous. This snake eaten the frog. Okay, this frog is eaten by the snakes. That means energy here secondary to secondary energy transfers. This insect to frog, that is from primary to the secondary energy level transfer, energy is transfer. Then energy from frog to snake, we can say that this is the transfer of energy from secondary to secondary consumers. Now these snakes, which are the secondary consumers, are eaten by the havoc. Okay, this is known as the, it is known as eagle also. The snake is eaten by these tertiary consumers. That means the energy is transferred from secondary consumer to the tertiary consumer. Here we can see that there is a particularly sequence of energy transfer from producers level to the tertiary consumers. Okay, this is known as it is a sequential arrangement of organism through which energy passes. This is known as the food chain. This is known as the food chain. Now here one example, that is, for example, insect feed on the plants. Okay, then this is known as the plant is the producer. Then these insects are eaten by the frog. Then these insects are eaten by the frog and eaten by the snakes, and these frogs are eaten by the snakes, and snakes are eaten by the havoc. Okay, this eating and being eaten sequence can be represented in the form of chains. This eating and being eaten, this sequence, that is their food eaten is a arrangement. This we can show by the sequence, can be represented in the form of chains. Now this trophic level in the food chain, we can show that the sequentially and represented in the form of chain. We can represent in the form of chain called as the food chains, which is represented as the follow, that is grass, insect, frogs, snakes and havoc. Okay, this point understand. Then we move on next point. That is, ecosystem contain number of such food chain. Okay, ecosystem consists of the number of the food chains. That depends on the different types of the ecosystem. That is, in the grassland ecosystem, their food chain will be different. In forest ecosystem, this food chain will be different. In aquatic, in pond ecosystem, this will be the different types of the food chain from in the different ecosystems. Ecosystem contains number of such food chains. Each food chain start with producers. Okay, this is known that every food chain start with the food chain, this start with the producers and ends in the top order consumers, and this food chains is end by the top order consumer. Basically, there are two types of food chains. Okay, here basically all scientists done study of all the ecosystems, and they divided all food chains into two types of the food chains. Okay, therefore we call it the, basically there are two types of the food chain, that is consumer food chain, that is a consumer food chains, this is known as grazing food chains, and detritus food chains, that is a decomposer food chains. Now in this lecture we discuss about the consumer food chains. Grazing, that means these are the depends on the grazing animals, and consumers, there is a relationship between grazing and consumers animals, therefore we can call it as the grazing or consumer food chain. We call it as the grazing or consumer food chains. Okay, it starts from green autotroph. This grazing or consumer food chain, it starts from the green autotroph. We know that the function of these green autotrophic animals. Okay, that is green autotrophic organisms are synthesis the food materials through the photosynthesis process and end in the level of carnivorous. Okay, and then you know that this producer is eaten by primary consumer, then primary by secondary, secondary by the tertiary consumer. That means the top level consumer. The ecosystem having grazing food chains are directly depends upon the influx of solar energy in the form of solar radiations. Here, what do the plants doing? These plants are doing photosynthesis process. Through this photosynthesis process, light energy is converted into the chemical energy, and this chemical energy is used as a food by the other organism, that is the primary consumers or secondary consumers. Then, thus this type of food chain depends on the harvesting of solar energy by autotrophs and movement of this acquired energy to the herbivorous and carnivorous animal. Most of the ecosystem in nature have this type of food chain. As you see, most of the ecosystem, that's mean in the forest ecosystem, in grassland ecosystem, in pond ecosystem, this is the common type, that is the grazing or consumer food chain is a common type of food chains. The food chains of grassland ecosystem can be represented as a follow. Okay, we can see here likewise this is the found in the grassland ecosystem and other ecosystem. In grassland ecosystem, this is the grasses, their function is the photosynthesis. Okay, then this is the producer, then these producers are eaten by the primary consumers, that is the insect, then insect is consumed by the insect is consumed by the frog, and this frog is consumed by the snakes, which are the secondary consumers. This frog and insect are primary consumers, and finally this snake is consumed by the tertiary consumer, that is havoc. This is found in the grassland ecosystem, in the forest ecosystems. Then we move on. Next is the marine food chain. The marine food chain, as you see in the aquatic ecosystem or marine ecosystem, these marine food chains can be represented as the follow. In the aquatic ecosystem, we know that the producers are the phytoplanktons, microscopic algae, some bacteria, that is sea and bacteria. This having a role in the photosynthesis, that is phytoplanktons, we can say as the phytoplanktons. These phytoplanktons are eaten by the small zooplanktons, these are primary consumers. Then these zooplanktons, small, this is the larvae, tadpoles, these are eaten by the crustaceans, the crustaceans are eaten by the small fishes. Then these small fishes are eaten by the large fishes, and large fishes are eaten by the killer fishes. Likewise, this from producers to the top order consumer, this food chain represent. This is the killer fishes is the top order consumers. These types of food chains found in the marine ecosystems. खूप इझी आहे हे. काय प्रॉब्लेम असेल तर व्हिडिओच्या खाली कमेंट करा. वी कॅन स्टॉप हिअर.